Greetings and salutations. This is Jason Silverain, and today I'll be taking a look at Cultist Simulator, Bring the Dawn. This was developed by Weather Factory and Alexis, creator of Fallen London and Sunless Sea. And just by those two games, this follows the creator's reputation for making games that are both obtruse and very difficult. And yes, Cultist Simulator is no exception to that rule. It was released May 2018 and is available for $14.99. Now let me say I've already had problems whilst running and recording this because the game does not seem to save its resolution settings when I set them before starting the game, because it's one of those games when you click play in Steam, it brings up a small box with most of the settings in, you choose your settings then, and then it runs the game. This is why the video is not full screen, because it will not save the resolution settings, even though I pick them every time. Minor annoyances aside, the game does have in-game options, which are reasonable. They're mostly to do with the UI, apart from this bird/worm, which is actually a secret puzzle. And it does affect things every so often. I've not quite figured it out yet. It was one of those things for the Kickstarter backers, and it was something that would essentially link you to another website, I believe. I've done a little bit of research into it, but because people don't want to give out spoilers with this game, it's very difficult to find any information. Now, the point of Cultist Simulator is to create a Lovecraftian horror narrative. Now, it's all done by two things, cards and these action tiles. Now, thankfully, the action tiles do actually click and clip into the area. However, I have found when you earn new cards, it tends to put them willy-nilly all over the board, and it really gets aggravating when you're trying to keep things nice and tidy and neat for the best efficiency. So, you start off as in menial employment. You're a hospital porter. I've not had any other starting position, so the starting of the game is identical in my last 5 playthroughs. I don't know if it's just bad luck of the draw, or if there are other starting ways, but it does mean that every time you start a new game it's a little tedious. Another shift, mopping the darkened hallways, delivering posts to corpse-eyed invalids and trudging corpse-laden gurneys to the basement. And then, so you put your card in, you hit start, it has a timer. You can fast forward the time, and you can also pause it, and you will need to pause it because this game will have you essentially spinning plates, as quite a few people described it as. You get so many of these by the end, and cards also later on have timers, so you're in this desperate struggle to get everything you need done to use your resources before things run out. And there are a few tips and tricks here and there where you be a little cheeky. So, recalling my dreams. Oh yes, I just got fired from my job. Sorry, I'm so used to skipping the outcome of that one now. So now I've given unskilled labour. But as you saw, I got the health card, which is like the first physical body card you get. You later get reason and passion, which these seem to be your core personality cards. Funds, you need those to live. So if you run out of funds, game over. But you'll see why in just a minute. And each card has aspects, which again is nothing's really explained to you. And this is part of the game, is learning the mechanics and discovery. And that's actually a really big high. It's a really big draw to the game. And when I saw this being played by someone else, it really attracted me to the game. It seemed like a great idea, and it really runs off that discovery high. Now, here we go. I like to put my debuffs and problems at the top and my actual actions at the side, so just give me a second. Now, time passes. I need funds to live, but perhaps this recent upset in my circumstances is a secret blessing. There's something to my dreams as a change in the air. So I'll stick my funds there. And that will tick down every 60 seconds. It will take the funds, and if I run out of funds, game over. Recalling my dreams. It began when I spoke to an old man in the hospital. He knew my name, but he's dead now. With pneumonia. Why do I dream of him still? What is a cobalt light in my dreams? Time is now passing. There we go. So you sort of start exploring the mysteries of your dreams, and this is how you start getting into the Cthulhu mythos. You also can do research and go on expeditions later on to find artifacts, though there are a few issues with those. And while I'm on it, this is contentment. This is your first example of a card that ticks down over time. Now this first contentment card is pretty useful. Pretty useless. The dread doesn't really pop up unless you're very unlucky with random events right at the start. But you can use contentment in a manner of ways, like beating off dread, which is a debuff card. But strangely, a couple of the debuff cards, you actually can use them to stop other debuff cards. So again, it's learning about all these interactions, and this is where the game's big draw is. It's a constant learning process. But this does have a big flaw, because the game is so obtruse, and you know, you don't really have much explanation on how things work. You can get into a position where you're essentially doing the same actions over and over just to survive, or very slowly build up certain resources, and then have tons of cards all over the table, but no way of actually progressing. I should be using passion here, and you'll find that you'll want to be constantly keeping things running. Okay, so my dream's passion. I know this dream. A road crests a hilltop. The area is light. The area is silver bright. And if I had a Cthulhu lore, I could put that now to sort of influence my dream and start going down certain areas of mythic lore. You do get a very brief explanation of what the mechanics are, but again, not really many of the combinations. Oh, well, that was fortunate. See, that was a random event. That doesn't pop up every single time. I've had a few negative ones pop up right at the start and actually game over me very quickly as well. Now this... see, it explains this particular card can be used with the study action to gain additional reason. Now, I don't actually have reason yet, but it's quite an important card, because, as I said before, you have body, reason, and passion, and those are your physical cards. You can research to improve the amount of cards you have, so I've got to wait for that to recharge. I now have Vitality, which is essentially the health version of this, and at the very start I need 2 of them to, you know, if I get 2 Vitality and study that, then I get basically physical training. I build my muscles and the like. If I do this one, I get scholarship. So essentially like I've gone to school. A request arrives. A letter from a solicitor, the old man at the hospital, the one I dreamed of, has named me in his will. I'll hear more soon. And this is when you start getting into the Cthulhu mythos. This is where you get his package full of old notes and the like, and you start essentially your path to madness. So let me fast forward the time a little bit. My dreams just keep ticking down. Oh, collect that. The old man's bequeathed me a sum of money, a packet of peculiar papers. Without going into too much, because I don't really want to spoil this for anyone who does get the game. Now it gives me the study action, so you can come over here. There. And it gives me an item I can interact with. Now, right away, I'm going to interact with reason, because that should give me another one of these, and I'll be able to improve my overall reasoning. So, that was a very handy random event I got. Okay, there we go. And here's the first potential debuff of restlessness. Now this can be a useful card in the right situations, but if you leave it to tick all the way down, it'll turn into dread. And I apologise if I'm going a little fast with all these explanations, but again, it's just stuff you've learned. And again, this is how the game works. So eventually, you just keep going through and doing this, and this is pretty much the game in a nutshell. The actual cult side of it, I found the cultists the weakest part of the game. They were not very useful. You need them for a variety of tasks later on, but you spend a lot of the time not actually using your cult members. So if I go study and study, little hint is these timers don't tick down when they're actually in one of these slots. So one thing you can do is if you're trying to save a few cards from ticking down, you can open study, stick them in there, and just keep the time going as normal. In fact, it's sometimes the only way you can actually get enough cards in time, because by the end of it, I will be needing a lot, and I mean a hell of a lot of vitality. Because it starts off with you need 2, then it goes up to you needing 4, and then you need 6, then 8, and because these tick down over I think 3 minutes, and it takes essentially 60 seconds to do work or research, which is your main way of earning those cards. You know, it gets very difficult to get enough to level up. Now, there's 3 kind of jobs you can do. You can do manual labour. That's risk of injuring yourself. Only ever pays you 1 fund, so not very efficient. But it does give you vitality. Later on, if you level up your vitality, there's no risk of injuring yourself, but you never really get any extra money out of it. Reason, you get an office job, but that has its own array of problems. If you get a nuisance of a boss who just doesn't like you, and he constantly has you for overtime, so you always get 2 funds when you level it up. So basically you get promoted. But there's a chance you'll get called in for overtime and not take extra time, and you won't earn your funds as quickly. And then you've got passion, which gives you the painting job, which is actually just broken. Painting is the most efficient way to get cards and money, because once you've leveled up the painting skill, or your imagination in this case, to give you more passion, you can add more cards, which are given to you by the painting skill initially anyway. Because when it starts, you don't earn anything, but by the end of it, you're earning between 3 to 4 funds if you're lucky, and that's quite a lot. So you're never short of money, and you always have cards. So. Yearning. Oh, I need restlessness for that. So, unfortunately, didn't quite have time. It already turned into dread. So we fast forward again. Hopefully I can... There you go, my funds have ticked down. My health's almost recovered. Okay, now I just pause it. Exercise the mind. And oh, I've gained a scholarship. And I now have 2 reason cards. There we go. Now, the game really thrives on its descriptions. Though, again, because you're so busy jumping between each of these tiles, you never really get... Well, you'll read them the first time, but after a while you just start skim reading them, which is a bit of a problem because some of the puzzles in the game require you to be familiar with the lore. So it doesn't just give you the cards you need, you have to learn this stuff. Which is an interesting thing, and it really goes to show the familiarities this has with Sunless Sea and Fallen London, where it has fantastic lore. But I do say that the scores this game has gotten, it's had many rewards, but I think the scores regarding it being in the 70s out of 100 are well earned, because it's very easy to get stuck in the loop, as I mentioned earlier. It's very easy to get stuck in essentially just keeping yourself going, and not being able to progress because you just don't know what to do next, or you're just not getting the right cards. Because even though you can do the same actions, but you won't always get the same cards out of it, especially with the painting. So when you start doing the dreams, which you need to do to progress, you actually have a random card to select. It's like, oh, I've done this particular dream, I'm dreaming of this particular mythos. I can earn a card, but I can't see what that card is. I'll select either the left card or the right card, and you could just be screwed over by random chance. You can just not get the lore you need to progress, and it can get very, very frustrating. So I'm going to end this here, and my advice is, if you're quite clever, you want to invest a lot of time, because a single game to completion is between 20 to 40 hours, as stated by the developers. And you don't mind the semi-Facebooky style element of this game, where you're constantly waiting on timers, because it is a time sink. It will eat up your time. Go for it. It's probably a game you can sit down and enjoy. But if you want something that's a bit more fast-paced, a bit more, well, how to say, intuitive and has more interactivity, this is probably not for you. But thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.